Good morning. Yeah, this thing says I still have to wait another minute and a half. You know what? I'm ready to go and got my coffee. Sitting at my desk, all nice, straightened out. So let's just get going. I'm not gonna sit here for another minute. I'll watch this countdown. Hello, this is my big face screen that I never use. So let's just go straight to the coding one. Oh well, the game dev view. Okay. So what is? Okay, just before I continue too far, let me just make sure everything is kind of working. Yeah. YouTube is fine. Twitch is funny. No, there we go. Twitch is good. Okay. Great stuff. Okay, what were we doing? We were struggling to fix the crocodile, right? Okay, I think I'm gonna move him a little bit because all these gizmos overlapping is a bit annoying. So let's just move him out of the way, and then yeah, we can view him separately a little bit better. Okay. So he was having some attack animations. Okay, so I'm just checking the hitboxes here, so that's fine. This one is fine. Oh, we haven't set up number 2 yet. Okay, we're just doing number 1. Okay, so attack number 1. Okay, now. So there's a couple of things we might want to do for controlling the crocodile. So if you looked at the small enemy, right, the little lizard, what I do there is I just go to the nav mesh agent attached to the enemy, right? So this thing. And I put in a stopping distance. You can actually put in a stopping distance here as well, like 3 at least, or even 5, right? But this is effectively how I do it. So that I basically calibrated that number to be roughly the range of the enemy, so they'll be in range to hit, right? But for the crocodile, you can already tell that's not going to work so lacquer, because that attack has a certain amount of reach, and this one might have a little bit more. So I would like him to trigger this attack, or to attempt to trigger this attack, when we are a bit closer. So that being said, what I think we should be doing is we should be using these trigger areas to potentially turn off the nav mesh. Right, so that instead of strictly adhering to the stopping distance, he would rather go and run until he reaches you, switch off the navigation, and try and hit you. Okay. So that's one of the things I'm thinking could work. Okay, let's check here. Yeah. So effectively, when attack trigger gets called, for instance. Well, not the attack trigger itself, when the player character is in the trigger zone. Right, now the only thing is we don't necessarily have access to the nav mesh agent in the attack script. And technically we shouldn't have access to it in most things, except maybe the manager. or movement specifically, actually, because it is part of the movement script. Where is the movement script? It's not open. Oh, I'm clicking on manager again. Okay, let's just move it over here. I want to see all my... So technically it should be in movement, right? Yeah, so we update the destination continuously, right? Every frame at this point. Which honestly might be too much, but for now it's whatever. So what we should be doing is saying we should only update our destination if we are busy moving. And not just regardless of whatever is happening, whatever else is happening. Okay, so that could be something like we need to check what the state is of our character, right? So we could, for instance, then have a serialized field. I'm sure there was something else I was supposed to be doing. You know what, actually, let's go through the our to-do list. Okay, let's see. We got the mesh done. We got the animations done. We're busy with the controllers and stuff. And then we'll have to work with the AI. In our time tracker... Oh, no, I think... You know what? Boss Crocodile. Oopsie, I never stopped it yesterday. Okay, we can fix it. We can fix it. Good morning, Ice Bear. How are you doing? Let's just fix this quickly. I was live for 3 hours and I was working on the boss. Okay. And we can start this again. Okay, cool. Just got some admin out of the way. I'm well, thanks. I'm well. It is 3:36 in the morning. Yeah, so good evening to you. Good evening. Yeah, I guess I'm going to get a lot of viewers from the other side of the planet since I stream so early. Yeah, I figured, you know, I'm too... Mostly, you know, in the evenings I'm way too tired to actually do anything. So I decided if I'm too tired to do anything, I might as well go to bed. And if I go to bed, I might as well wake up early and do something, right? So it's a bit of a... I'll be honest, it's a little bit inconvenient, right? Going to bed at like 7 or 7:30 p.m. It's a bit weird. Yeah, your whole schedule is kind of not working so nice. But I haven't gotten this much work done for the game in flippin' forever. So in the end, I think it might be worth it. Okay, let's get the CBE. Let's get the state machine. So I'm thinking we should check for the state itself. Yeah. So if CB and let's use state machine. Is there a get state function in there? No, there's not yet. No. Yeah, I think it's been worthwhile. Well, it's been worthwhile in that I get a lot of work done. We'll see if the work I'm doing is worthwhile one day. Right, current. I mean, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I get work done. Is the work worth anything? And it might be one day. Get state. Okay, we're getting the state. Then we say if the state is equal to actually maybe we should do not equal to running. This is going to be awkward, I think. Yeah, so if the state is not equal to running, if it's not equal to running, we want to set the destination. I mean, that makes sense. The only question is who decides that we need to run? Who decided that we needed to be running or not? This is kind of the problem. So we also need to figure this out. Because I don't think we have a way of deciding that. But for now... So I should have some logic just to check or to figure out whether or not we should be moving towards the play or what's happening, you know? Okay, but for now, at least when we go to the attack state, we should at least be stopping the destinations setting for the nav mesh agent. Okay, so let's see what that means. Okay, so attack. Okay, so we invoke attack. When we evoke the attack, the manager listens to that and it sets the state to attack. That means our movement with its update function figures out, okay, wait, something happened. So maybe we should stop setting the destination. Now, that just means, if, as far as I know, the crocodile will continue moving to whatever the last destination was. Right, the nav mesh or the agent has not been disabled necessarily. Okay, but let's see if any of this works the way I think it should. Okay, wait, there is still something broke with the animator, but let's try this, and then we can see how it goes. We can figure out what our problems are. Okay, he's doing his thing. Okay, so I know exactly what the problem is. So I just said it. Nothing tells it to start walking. So it starts in the idle state, obviously. And I have other problems. Yeah, okay. Wait, why is there so many lizards? What are you guys doing here? I thought I turned you off. Go away. Okay. No, I get it. Okay, also we have I forgot to put the state machine in there. Yep, that might also be a problem. Okay, so let's go look at the animator and just fix some of this stuff. Okay, so idle sheathed. Okay, so that's the default state. I don't know if this is necessary. I don't think that is necessarily how I want it to go. So we go from idle into attacking. You know what's happening here? I think I know now. So each of these exit, right? So they exit the state. When you exit the state, you basically go up to the base layer. And normally, you would just follow one of these lines. But when we exited the state, none of these were true, so it couldn't actually go into any of these other states. So what it does, it goes back to entry instead. And from entry, it obviously just goes straight to idle sheathed. I think that's what's happening there. So yeah, he attacks, he finishes his one attack animation, then he goes, go back here. Okay. Just want to see, what does the debug menu teach me about this thing? Okay. Not much. Okay. So I need to set, yeah, because I think with all the other animators, I do set the state back to idle when it exits. And also, I think most of the other ones have a... Yeah, they actually have only an idle state to go into, where this one has the idle sheathed. Yeah, so maybe I should do something like this. A substate machine that I call idle. And I should have both idle and idle sheath in there. And depending on which one is actually being used at the moment, it'll go to that one. I don't really want him to idle sheathed. But I might, yeah, you know what, I might want to do this. Can I just drag it in there? Oh no. Did it work? What? Okay, cool. That kind of worked. And if I drag you in there? Ooh, interesting. Okay, so this is probably a mess inside here now. Yeah, this is a mess. This is quite the mess. Oh. I didn't realize you could do that. Huh. Okay. Okay, so we could also make a transition, yeah. And we can add a parameter for this one, a boolean. Let's call it weapon drawn. Maybe that makes sense. We could just say, look, you can only go into this one if weapon drawn is false, right? So we don't currently have a weapon drawn. Don't do this, right? Okay. I'm just gonna leave all of this. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't do exit. Maybe I should be using the base layer, because for this one, for instance, yeah, I don't do base layer, I just do exit. Maybe that's the correct way of doing this. I don't know. Now, these ones will also just exit the state. Maybe I should go back to the base layer state. Huh. I wonder actually how that works if you just set that up. Okay, let's see, attack. So let's see if I take a transition from attack to up base layer. Oh. then I can tell it to go to... Wow. Okay, we can actually tell it to go to movement, walk, or just to the movement state machine itself. Okay. Whereas to this one, I just give it a exit condition, just exiting the state. That's pretty neat. I didn't realize it worked like that. Huh. Look at me learning stuff. Cool. Okay, I have no idea what is a good way of using that though. Okay, so let's see. We start off from entry, we go into idle. We have weapon drawn false, necessary, maybe, right? We don't know. And then we could actually do a make a transition to... No, wait, that transition exists already. Okay, we can idle sheath to weapon unsheath, so we can make a transition to this if weapon drawn is false. We might want a different scenario there. Okay, yeah. We might want another. So weapon drawn is false. So we might want to have a trigger or another integer, a boolean, to draw a weapon. So I'm thinking you start off, let's say, the crocodile is just standing there. His weapon is, not drawn. Okay. And this idle state loops. Then at some point that gets triggered to go to draw weapon. The draw weapon state or the unsheath weapon state. So I can either have that just as a trigger, once off thing that goes on and off, and he doesn't. Or I can have a boolean that could remain true, I think. Not sure actually if that's a good idea. Maybe it should just be a trigger. Just a quick trigger, it goes to that, and then it... Let's try a trigger, right? We can always change it. Trigger, draw hammer. So I want this guy to have two weapons eventually. So we can do now a trigger, draw hammer, right? So when trigger, draw hammer fires, it'll go from sheath to drawing the hammer. Right, there we go, draw hammer. And then it just goes back into idle. Okay. Oh, we can add scripts here? I don't even know what that script would do. Jeez, like it. I have so much to learn. Okay. So this will probably not work. So let's go build in the trigger into the crocodile somehow. So let's see. We start off our... let's go to the manager, right? So we start off in idle state. Okay, so we set the state to idle. And then our animator, it knows that we set the state to idle. So we should actually add a few more things here. So the weapon drawn, right? Okay, and it's just literally weapon drawn. And then the trigger is draw hammer. Okay, so now we have the weapon drawn boolean and the draw hammer one. Okay, so we set the state to idle. That's fine. So within this, so we're in the idle state. So I could say, let's check whether or not yeah, so we should basically have two potential booleans that we set here. Either the idle is idle must be true, and weapon drawn must be false to go into the idle state. Right. So okay, so let's just do that. Animator.set bool, and we can say weapon drawn equals false. Right, so let's say we do that. Initially, this is just when we go into the state. Maybe. So should we be keeping track of a boolean here as well? Or maybe that's in the manager, right? So the manager itself, the manager would know if we have our weapon drawn or not. So we could say, okay, so this is now becoming a bit of a thing, I guess. So the state machine okay, so currently the manager or the animator doesn't know about the manager, but the manager knows about the animator. So I could have the manager set a boolean in the animator itself, or run a function or whatever the case might be. Or I could have the animator ask the manager whether or not this is true or false. And which is better? If I had some experience, I might be able to tell you. But currently, it feels like they are both equally valid options. And I might find out later, due to the way this shakes out, that it might have been better to do this in the manager instead or in the animator instead. Now, I'm thinking the manager should know, right, whether or not the hammer has been drawn. Okay, the manager should know that. That's what I think. Okay, the manager, yeah. You know what? Thinking about it, that seems right. It doesn't help if the animator knows that, and the manager needs to find out from the animator. Right? If, for instance, I want some interaction or something to happen in the future, then the manager is going to have to go check with the animator. Yo, did we have the hammer drawn again? I can't remember. I didn't keep track of that. And that seems weird. The animator, though, he doesn't really care, right? Okay, yeah, this makes sense to me now. Okay, so maybe we should actually have enum. I'm not sure if this is entirely required. No. Let's just call it a private boolean and call it hammer drawn. And later we can do a private boolean crossbow drawn, right? And both of them start off false, right? Yeah, because at the beginning we don't have a crossbow or... So I know I don't necessarily need to say it there, but I just like to put it explicitly in start. Okay, so we start. We don't have a hammer or a crossbow drawn. Okay. Okay, and then we could just say public no, this should be a boolean. Public bool, call it hammer drawn, right? Or let's call it is hammer drawn. Is hammer drawn. And all we need to do is return hammer drawn. Right, and then we can do is crossbow drawn, and we return is crossbow drawn. Yeah, so this is just asking, whether or not this is in fact happening. Okay, then our animator, the animator should have an idea of what the manager is up to. So let's do that. Private CBE manager. Okay. And then over here, we go into idle. And is idle becomes true. Okay, that's fine. But then we should ask the question. If CBE manager dot is hammer drawn, so if that is true, that's great. Then we do set the boolean. Should set the boolean weapon drawn to true. Right, so we have weapon drawn. And maybe we should make that hammer drawn, actually. Okay, so since weapon drawn is true now, that would mean that our animator could never actually go from any entry into here to idle sheathed. It can only go into idle sheathed when this is false. Okay. Now we could also do a else. So if the hammer is not drawn, well, then we kind of want to set this to false, right? Okay, so the state of the crocodile is idle. But how we idles is a bit more complicated in this case, so we need to add additional functionality to the animator itself. This is only affecting the animator, right? Nothing else. Okay, now, how do we get him to draw his weapon? So what I'm thinking is going to happen now, it's going to go into idle, and then it will just sit in the idle, nothing is drawn type of state. Okay, so for now, for dramatic effect, we could have in the manager just a timer. And then we have a trigger. We set the trigger over here. There's our update function. So we could have a public, just void, draw hammer, Let's call it trigger draw hammer. Right, so trigger draw hammer. And effectively what we could do here is we go CBE dot, animator CBE animator dot set trigger, and we set the trigger the draw hammer trigger. Okay, so once this trigger has been set, this should also become true, right? But this guy is not worried about that, so draw trigger doesn't really matter. What we can do here is we can have a private void, and we can call this not update, private void, and this could be the, well, the draw hammer function, right? So what does the crocodile do when he draws his hammer? So first of all, hammer drawn becomes true. Right, that part should be obvious. But once that also happens, it goes and it does it takes the animator, so it goes CBE animator, and it just tells it to trigger the draw hammer function, right? Okay. The draw hammer becomes true, and we trigger that function. Okay, now we might have wanted, so there might be an event or something that happens to trigger this, right? But for now, I'll just make a update function, and I'll say if, so that this thing doesn't do this all the time, if not hammer drawn, right? So if we haven't drawn the hammer, I just want to do it on a timer, right? A couple of seconds. Let's just do hammer. Right, the hammer draw timer. And we can just make this, initialize this to 0. There should be a float, actually. A float. Okay, so if we haven't drawn the hammer, what are we doing? Well, we basically do hammer, draw timer. Sorry. Plus equals time dot delta time, and then we go if hammer okay, so we can do this a couple of ways. So we can start at 0, then count up, or we can start at a number and count down. Let's start at a number, 3 seconds, count down. So if it's less than 0, then we call the draw hammer function, right? We have our little tiny timer right there. Now, like I said, this is probably not going to be a timer in the future. So let's write here timer to have Crocodile draw his hammer. Okay, so he draws his hammer. Okay, so currently, yeah. So since our state machine is not running, we are not setting the destination for the agent. I mean, that makes sense in theory. But we should set the state to running at some point, right? So there's two ways I think we could do this. We could just do it with a timer for now, let's say. So we say, look, or not a timer, but something like we wait for the hammer to be drawn, for all this stuff to happen. And then we go for it, right? We set the state to running, and this guy will go. Right? The problem is, as soon as he attacks even once, he will immediately then stop. Right, so he attacks once, and he doesn't move any further, which is not a problem. But we want to figure out whether or not the character then moved away in the meantime, and then we want to pursue them again, right? So I guess that would just be a simple distance check. Yeah. So with the frog, what I did there was I said, look, we're doing the distance thing. Yeah, we're checking the distance. That's fine. But we also need to check whether or not the attack animation has completed, at least. Because the thing that was happening there is he would start moving again while still playing the attack animation. So you kind of have to do something where you don't allow the character to go into the next state if the animations haven't completed play. Okay, because it looks weird. Especially if it is still playing the attack animation and the state switches to running. Okay, because what that does is it sets the destination for the nav mesh agent, and you run while playing the attack animation, or you move at least while playing the attack animation, and that looks kind of right? Unless we set up the crocodile to work like the characters. So you'd know that the characters they have a bit more complicated setup for the state machine. When they attack, they keep moving, right? And their little legs walk while they move. And I don't necessarily want the boss to do that, right? That's a character thing, because you need to be able to kite while you are still dishing out damage. So I don't think I'm going to let the crocodile do that. That seems unnecessary for an enemy. Okay, so we just need him to stop. Now what we can do is we can go to our, where the hell is anything? I want to go to the scene maybe. Click on the crocodile. So what we can do, if you look at the animations themselves, so the attack animation for instance, it's got a few frames here, and I can even add one. So again, I can be like, okay, over here, we say you're allowed to move again. for instance. Right, if the enemies are not in the vicinity, we say go ahead and move, right? And at the start, we say, look, we are winding up our attack, so don't move now. Right, so at like the second frame, we could do that. So you can add a keyframe there, and you can add like one there, right? Now we just need to connect a function, and that function is going to keep track of whether or not the attack 1 animation is playing. Right, so let's see. Well, it needs to be a method, maybe. Maybe it doesn't have to be a method, so we'll try. Oh, we could actually just run from the animator straight. We'll use the animator events, I think, because that makes sense. Okay, so let's go to the animator events. Now let's see. Okay, so there's a bunch of nonsense here. Let's try something. I don't know if this works. So let's do public bool attack 1 in progress. So just something like that, very straightforward. So we set it to true when we start, and we set it to false when we end, right? Let's just try that. I'm not sure if I can, from the animation player, actually set booleans, public booleans. It would be kind of amazing if I can. So let's see. If I select this animation event. Damn it. Only methods. What if we do the property thing? Probably won't work either, right? Yeah. Okay, but we can do... Okay, so let's just make it... do we keep it public? No real reason to make it public, right? Okay, but public is set. Okay, let's call it set attack 1 in progress. Oh, function names are my nemesis. Okay, so we can basically do if public void set attack 1 in progress. So if attack 1 in progress, then I think there's a shorthand for this, I believe. I can't remember, but I seem to remember there was something that you could do that makes this. They can do this. Maybe it's just returning a value. I can't remember. We need one there. Yeah. So basically, we run this. Look, if we are already attacking, we just make it true. No. If we are already attacking, we set it to false. If we are not attacking, we set it to true. And this might be fine. So we start off at false, which means we set it to true. Yeah. Okay, set attack 1 in progress. So if we go to our, our animation event over here, for attack 1, we can make this thing go. Animate events method, set attack 1 in progress. And we can go to this one. Actually, you know what? Could I have it take something? This might fail. So what if we do Boolean I don't know what to call this. Boolean, okay, yes. I don't know what. I want to call it attack 1 in progress, right? So it sets it to this. Could I do that? Is that a thing? All right. If I did that and I do attack 1 in progress equals attack 1 in progress, does it understand that? I don't think it does. Yeah, it doesn't understand that. Okay, so let's make this is attack 1 in progress, and we set this one to that. Okay. I want to see if this is a thing. I don't know if it is, so let's check. Okay, Unity is doing its compiling thing. Okay, let's go here. Can I I think it's not supported. You can have an integer as a parameter, but not a Boolean. Right? Yeah. Unless I'm just not doing it correctly. Yeah, this one has a attack number integer, but I can't have a Boolean. That's kind of dumb. But I can make it int. Attack in progress int. Right. And then I suppose what I could do is I could just do if attack in progress int is equal to 0. We set this thing to false, else it's true. Else, let's just do it else if it's true. Does that get around the problem? No, I don't even know if this would have been a problem. It might not have been. But it feels like it could be a problem. So let's go here. So now we can say, cool. This is our attack, set attack 1 in progress, 1. Okay. And then over here, just make sure it's the right method. Set attack 1 in progress, 0. So we start, we stop. So if it's 0, it's false. If it's 1, it's true. I mean, I feel like they could have just let me use a Boolean here. But anyway, the tick box, right? Okay, but now, at least, sometimes it'll skip the first one because there's a, if you go to the animator, right, this transition could be a bit funny, where it kind of skips the first split second or something. Yeah, if you look at this, so you can see it fades in or whatever, and sometimes that means actually that we miss the first second or so. No, not second. It will be split second. But we'll see if that is the case. So maybe it's not. Okay, but now at least we have a way. We can set this boolean now. Okay, and basically this is important to us because this would help us to understand what the movement script is able to do. Okay, so maybe we should have a public boolean can move. Okay, and then I don't know if that's necessary. Do we set so do we want this public? Okay, but let's assume we want it public, right? So then basically we say, okay, if we are not running, then do that, right? If we can move, we should set it to running. So handle movement is if can move, then we should say state machine dot set state to dot running. Okay, so if we can move, we can set it to running, which also means we do this thing, right? And this is now updated the whole time, or checks this every single frame. That seems unnecessary. That seems unnecessary. Obviously, if you can't move, then we don't set it to running. But now, if we are moving, right, we're running after the guy. We keep coming in and we're like, oh, okay, we can still move. Set it to running again. So we keep resetting the state. And I don't want that because that could make you override the state in some instances. So we should actually only set the state to running or not running if the can move changes for some reason. Right, or, yeah. We could also do something else. We could call this not can move necessarily, but we could call it something like is doing action, right? And now what I'm thinking now is we're not necessarily asking, can we move? We're just asking, look, is the guy doing something? Okay. If he's not doing an action being an attack or taking out his weapon or something like that, then we can move. And we are in the running state, of course. So we can ask, if we're handling movement, we can say, okay, get the state. If the state is equal to running, right? So if we are in the running state, that means we can set our destination. But we should also not be doing an action. Okay, so if we are not doing an action and we are in the running state, we can set the destination to go. Okay. Now, is doing action shouldn't be something the movement script knows. The manager, I believe, which is the central location of all our information, should know whether or not we are doing something or not. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it in the manager instead. I think that seems correct. Is doing action. And action now we can define as many different things. It can be we are taking out our weapon. It could be we are trying to finish this attack animation or whatever. So that is how this is going to work. So we're going to do is doing action over there. Okay, and then in our animator, yeah, I think this is the way that's going to go. So then the movement, it's not going to do that. It'll do movement. You should know about the manager, right? You are going to be using the manager for a lot of things. Private CBE manager. Let's call it the manager. So we're not doing this, but instead we are going to do manager dot is doing action, right? Not manager dot is doing action. So if we are not doing an action, we can have movement occur. Okay. And we'll also do another check a bit later for distance. Right, if you think about it. So at some point we might be too close. So if we are too close, we just rotate towards the enemy. We don't necessarily go running after them, for instance. We don't play the running animation, that's for sure. Okay. Okay, we still need to do quite a bit here. But this makes sense to me, at least. So if we go to the animator events, okay, this thing, so when it sets the attack in progress boolean, now we can ask, is it even necessary for it to keep track of the attacks that are in progress? Or does it just need to report to the manager that an attack is in progress? Now we can have this here so that it needs to figure out what to report, but it's doing the reporting. I think that makes sense to me. Then we can change all of this to just is doing action instead. Now what we could also do is we could use the Unity events or even as C# events. And we could have the manager listen to events It's one way of doing this. Right. And that would be necessary if the manager and the crocodile wasn't already connected. So I don't think that's necessary. Yeah, let's just use the good old serialized field. Yeah. Okay, so instead of this, we're going to go with the serialized field. No, not hide inspector. And this would be a private. That's fine. Hey. Private. Private CBE. Manager. We just call it the manager. So it's going to go and say, look, manager dot is doing action is false. Ha. I'm potentially seeing a problem here. But no two animations should be playing simultaneously. Right? I don't think that should be a thing. Right, so they should always... So what I was worried about is that they could override one another. So this one might say true, and then another animation says false before this one actually finishes and does the false setting itself, right? Okay, but I think this is fine. And I also think we don't need to know here if we are actually doing the attack. Right, we're not going to query it. Okay, what we can also do, and I think I like this more, let's do public void, and we make a function called start doing action. Okay, and it can be anything. And we can basically, do we need to check? No. And we can just do manager.doingAction is equal to true. And then we could do another one, public void stop doing action. And we can do is doing actions false. So none of this is actually required. So we just have these triggers start and stop doing actions. And when one of them happens, it tells the manager, look, we're busy with something, please don't do something. Just chill a little bit, right? Don't start running or playing the next animation or whatever the case might be. Just wait. We are still busy with something, right? And that'll get a lot of the jankiness, the weird behavior. And now I'm doing this. I should have done this with the frog as well, because I got around it somehow with the frog, but it was terrible. Okay. So this means that in our animator, which, okay, it's compiling its thing. Okay, do your thing. So in the animation for the crocodile, and we're going to have to do this, where am I going? With most of the animations, right? But for attack 1, over here, we actually just want to run the method start doing action. So we start doing an action somewhere near the start of the attack animation. And we stop doing action somewhere near the end. Right, so stop doing actions there, start doing actions there. Okay. So, now we have a way to check whether or not something is happening. And that means also in our movement now, we can say, look, if we are supposed to be running, so the state was set to running, but we are still doing an action, right? So if this is true, then that will be false. Yeah. I sometimes like to do this, just manager is doing action equals false. It's more explicit sometimes. It's easier to quickly see what I wanted to take to there. Because sometimes I get confused. But anyway, I do understand what I said there. So we are not doing an action. Then we can set the destination. Okay. So now we just need to figure out when do we actually go to the running state. So I think the movement script is the correct place for that to happen. So what I think we should do here is something like this. If we are not currently in the running state, so we are in some kind of another state. We are in attack. We are in... So we are in the attack state or in the idle state or some other nonsense state. So if we are not, now I'm going to have to figure out how to do this with death as well. But anyway, if we are not in the running state, we should be able to calculate our distance to the player. Right? So we should be able to get something called distance to player. And you know what? That might be useful if everybody could know that. So if we're calculating this, we can have a private, for now, maybe we change this, private float yeah, it's fine. Distance to player. No, what am I doing? Private float distance to player. Right, and over here, if we are not running, we want to calculate the distance to the player. Should that be when we are calculating the distance to the player? Maybe we should calculate it even when we are running. Maybe? Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. Okay, let's just say that for now, we only calculate the distance to the player when we are not running. If we are running, the agent or the nav mesh is doing that for us, technically. So, okay. But anyway, so if we're not running, then we can say distance to player equals, so let's see, we want, is it player manager dot instance dot transform dot position minus agent, no, just transform dot position dot magnitude. Look at Unity knowing what I want. Okay, so that's the first part. And then we can say, look, if the distance to player is greater than 5, I've no idea if that's good. So if we are not close to the player at the moment, now we can also have an aggro range, if that makes sense. So we could say that, look, if the distance is greater than 50, don't worry about it. You don't even know that the player exists. However, if the distance is less than 50, but still greater than 5, you should start running after him. Right? We could do that, but for now, all of the enemies just come from all over the map. So, if the distance is greater than 5, then we want to do state Yeah, state machine. Yeah. No. This is fine. State machine dot set state to running. Okay, and it's important to note that, look, we are not going to be setting this state if we are already running, right? So if we are running, we're not going to continuously set the state to running, which is important because we don't want to do unnecessary things, right? So we are not running. We calculate the distance. If we are close, we just leave the state as is, right? So we're probably in the attacking state or the idle state or something else. So we don't worry about that. And then we can only set our destination here. Now, there's something else I might have to do, and that is I might have to rotate the crocodile. Do a stretch. I might have to rotate the crocodile to just actually look at the character. Maybe. So that could be something I need to do. But the crocodile is going to be complicated, right? So I also have to think about that. At some point, we are even going to have to consider whether or not he has his hammer or his crossbow, for instance. And that will change a lot of these things. For instance, that might change whether or not this is 5, right? So currently it's 5, but it might not be 5. Okay, so let's see. So we're going to set it to running. Now, how can that break something? So let's see. If we go to our animator and think about this. So we come in, we go to idle. Okay. Inside idle, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be sheathed, right? Because the weapon drawing is going to be false. Okay, then I have a timer to draw the hammer. When the hammer is drawn, we go back. We go weapon unsheathed. Okay, and all this is timed, right? So it's not like we can skip any of this. We draw the hammer with the trigger. There we go out to is idle is true. Okay, so but at this point, we might already have started running. So that means running is already true and is idle has been set to false. So, yeah. But all of this happens in the idle state. But yeah, the animator is going to get confused. It's not going to know how to go to during unsheathed. Idle might be set to false and movement might be set to true. It's not going to know how to do that necessarily. So maybe we do an extra transition. To the movement state machine. I don't know. We just, for now, we just say, go if running is true, you could do that one instead, right? Otherwise, go to idle, and then idle will figure out what to do next. So idle, it'll go here. I'm sure I forgot something. That was a lot of code without... Let's clear those for now. There was a lot of code without me... testing anything along the way. So this might go terribly. Let's see. Let's see if it goes terribly or not. I forgot to plug in all the serialized fields. So it did go terribly. There we go. I thought so. Yeah, no. All of these don't know what the hell they're referencing because I never plugged in anything. Okay, who needs to plug something in? So let's see. This guy wants to know where the manager is. It's right there, guy. Yes, no. Okay, so that's fine. Let's go here. They might also need a few things. You need to know who the manager is. This is the manager. There you go. You need to know who the manager is. This is the manager. Those are where all the scripts are, right? So this should be fine now. Let's try again. Hey, nothing broke. Let's get out our chicken. Okay, he's coming towards me. But he's playing... Okay, let's open the... Okay, let's pause. Get the animator out. Okay, so let's see. He is in the is running state. But the draw... okay, yeah, okay. So this is now messing with it, right? Where's my chicken? Okay, so let's see. Yeah, we're just idling sheathed. Ooh. Sorry about that. Should mute the mic when I do that. Okay, there's a guy with a bomb. Okay, so let's see if I trigger draw hammer. Okay, he did that. He triggered draw hammer. Okay, he's a little bit confused. Why is there so many bombers? Jeez, like it. Okay, so there's definitely something happening here. Okay, we don't want that to happen, but that's one problem. So he didn't get the draw hammer trigger. Okay, let's just go. I'm gonna switch off some of these debug messages because it's not like I need them anymore, really. Okay, switch you off. And then this one, true, false, true, false. I can't even remember what this is for. Just checking whether something was true or false at some point. It's this attack flipper thing. No, thank you. It's fine. Help the player is bullying me. We have a reference exception problem. This is the weapon switch. Oh yeah, okay. Now I guess that makes sense. We could actually have that one working. Wait a minute. What do you mean that the script is missing? I still have the warrior controller here. Okay, don't know what that means. Let's take that out. Doesn't have to do anything right now. Okay. Okay, so we need to figure out what's happening here. So let's go to the manager and just ask him to, okay, we do the draw hammer thing and that triggers the draw hammer. Okay. So let's see, we start at 3 seconds, we count down. Okay, and then we draw hammer. Okay, that's fine. Movement. So, we are not running. Okay. We should say that we can't change to the running state if we are still doing an action, actually. So maybe we just do that simply like this, where we say and manager Basically just this thing. So we wait for the doing action thing to happen. And what we can do is we can just go to this animator. Oh, geez, just compile. Come on. Come on, Unity, you can do it. Okay. We just go here and we can go to animations. And we can say, you know, weapon unsheath is technically a action, right? So we can add. And I like to add this a little bit later. And we can say start doing action there. And stop doing action. You know, that's a good place to stop, I think. Okay, we add an event and we say stop doing action. Okay. Okay, with those changes, let's actually keep this open. I want to see what this guy does when he compiles. Oh, right when it starts, actually. So when we enter, nothing's happening, right? Timescale 0. We are in idle sheathed. That's fine. So you select the Robin. We are in idle sheathed. We are moving for some reason. We are staying in idle sheathed. Why is he moving? Oh, he's not doing an action, so he's setting his destiny, and he did go to running. Yeah, so this is gonna get funny because I needed to now do. So we are not running. But we are in idle sheathed. Should that also count as an action? So the reason I'm thinking that is because it's like, he's not in combat mode, right? He's doing some other things, right? Maybe a little cutscene or something where he's just standing there talking to you or something like that. And then he takes out his weapon, and when his weapon is out, combat starts. So then he's in combat mode. That kind of makes sense to me. So what we can have that whole sequence be a part of an action, right? So let's just stop this. Okay, so let's see. So the crocodile starts, let's say, in idle sheathed, right? And idle sheathed is kind of him just talking nonsense. So let's say when he starts, we do the action, start doing action, right? That makes sense. And we can't actually stop doing this action until we unsheath our weapon. Okay, so we can get rid of the start one technically, but I'm not going to do that. Okay. Yeah, so technically this can stay here. So only an unsheathed action can stop this this state. I think that makes sense. Okay, so he goes idle sheathed. He triggers draw weapon. Or draw hammer. And then only we can start running. Okay, so let's just go here quickly, see if that makes sense. So what we could also do is we can say is doing action true at the start, so that yeah, because currently it's set to false, and some of these things can happen in So we can just say, look, we start out doing an action. The action is we started the game. And then we take out our weapon. And only when we finished taking out our weapon did we, for the first time, stop doing actions. I think that makes sense. Right? Okay. So let's see it in action. Oh, please work. Please. Okay, let's get the manager for the Crocodile open, maybe. Just want to see. Okay, so his doing action is true. So he shouldn't try to run, right? Technically. Okay, let's just take out. Okay, he's moving, obviously. And he's not triggering. Oh, maybe in a way he's moving towards. Oh, I see. He got the last position I was in. So he sets his target at least once. For some reason. How does he do that? That doesn't make any sense. So let's see. For movement, he shouldn't have a target. Okay, but I do say that if the state machine is running and we are not doing an action, then we can set it. Doesn't make any sense, right? Because we are doing an action. Or did we trigger something somehow, some way? Is it our animator that maybe is broken? So we are in idle. We go into idle. We ask, is the hammer drawn? If yes, then we go to true. That's fine. If it's not drawn, it's false. Then at some point we set the trigger. The manager sets the trigger after 3 seconds. Let's make it 1 second. Just I have no idea what the hell is happening right now. I should probably be doing more debug messages. Okay, let's just keep an eye on the draw trigger. I want to see how that thing goes anyway. Ah, the draw hammer trigger. Okay, we select this guy. Nothing happens. I still don't know why he's moving towards me at the start. But also, he never draws his hammer. Why are you moving towards me, guy? That doesn't make any sense. Unless somewhere here I set the... no. I don't. Okay, so did I mess up? Okay, so if we haven't drawn the hammer... then we increase... This should be a minus, guys. What the hell? Who put that there? Okay, so now we should at least draw the hammer at some point in time. Jeez, like it. Okay. So we set state to idle. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we set the state to idle. Now we can draw the hammer. I'm still not sure why we can move though. Because technically movement is only handled here. And only when we are in the running state. And we are not doing an action, which we are doing in action. Can we set the destination for this, the agent? So this is done exactly once. At the very start. Somehow, and I'm not... Distance might be greater than 5, but we should be doing an action. So it shouldn't set it to running. That's a weird one. Somehow we are setting the destination at least once. Okay, let's just play this again. Let's keep our eye on the draw hammer trigger. Okay. He took out his hammer. Okay, now he's doing his weird run walk thing. Okay, but that's because my state machine here is broken. But at least he's moving. Alright. I can't shoot him. Does he attack me? Well, he says help the players bullying me at least. But he doesn't actually do his attack animation. Okay, that's progress, sort of. Okay, let's just change this behavior. So currently, I just want him to run. I think is running is true. So here we should have maybe another boolean, which is walking, right? And another one, maybe a dash trigger. Dash. So this must be a trigger. Dash, and this must be a boolean is walking. Righto. Okay, then we can exit there. But this should be a looping animation. Right. It might go out to idle and then back. Now. So we can do is running false. So it exits only when we stop running and none of the others are true. Okay, could try that. Okay, and then now it shouldn't go to the others. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. To get that to work. And then let's just see if this works and then we can work on the attack trigger, right? If this works, that's good. Then we can go to the attack trigger. Yeah, Trick or Night, let's go. So he takes out his weapon and now he's running. And he's only running. And I mean, he's running like a little bit of a fool. Okay, so let's see if we are in close proximity. Hey! Wait, something happened. He totally... Ah, he went back to idle sheathed. Ah, jeez. Oh, I know what's happening here. After 30 seconds, the spawner goes back to normal. And I get overrun again. Okay, let's just switch that off. Enemy camps. Because I don't really want to deal with the other guys right now. Wait, no, it's not there. It's in Progression Manager. No, I'm sure it's in enemy camps. Oh, you know what I did? Yeah, I only changed it for this one. Yeah, so let's do a revert. Yeah. I should have done it in the prefab itself. I only changed one of the spawners. Okay. So this was kind of interesting. He did attack me. I'm not quite sure how that trigger happened. I can't remember. Okay, he comes out, takes his weapon, runs towards me, gets into trigger zone, and he hits me exactly once. That's good. He shouldn't go into idle sheath, though. Weapon drawn wasn't set to true. Okay, that's our problem. Okay, first of all, let's get rid of this, because this is annoying. Okay, so the weapon drawn wasn't set to true. I guess that's the problem. Okay, so draw hammer function, hammer drawn is equal to true. Right, that's fine. So when the hammer drawn is equal to true, and we go to the animator, we should actually set it here as well. So we set the trigger, and we also do this. Yeah, because it doesn't necessarily, it comes here, does idle, it's still false. Yeah. So we set it to true. No, actually, how does that work? Is hammer drawn? It asks the manager, look, is the hammer drawn? The manager should say, yes, it is drawn. Right. There's no way this goes back to false. So then it should set this to true. But technically, if we set this trigger, we should also tell it, you know what, the weapon has been drawn, technically, so that's also another way of doing it. Okay, so let's go here. So let's see all of this in action. So we play. Okay. Goes there, gets the hammer, weapon is now drawn. Runs towards me. Triggers an attack. The weapon stays drawn, but he goes into idle sheathed. Even when weapon drawn is obviously ticked. That's annoying. Because the condition to go in here is that is pretty annoying. It can only go here when the weapon drawn is false. So after the attack, let's go here. So after attack 1, we say, okay, is idle is true, that's fine, so we can go in here. And then even though weapon drawn is true, it still manages to go into the sheath and not idle. That is wild. Why does that happen? Maybe it's just because of the default state thing. So if I set this to default, maybe that's better. Now it just straight goes to this one. Even though... why do we start in is running? That's interesting as well. So we go to run. So let's just ignore all the other stuff that happened. The attack is triggered. We attack. And we go to idle. And now we can attack again because we are just in idle. Yeah. Okay. So our little animator is a bit broken somehow. And it's specifically the idle one. So we go entry. Yeah, this one can only go up to weapon unsheathed. Or unsheathed weapon. What's bothering me is the fact that we are ignoring the conditions. So weapon drawn must be false. If weapon drawn is false, it can go into weapon idle sheathed. What if we do this? So that's the default. This is the other one. So we could do weapon drawn must be true for us to go into this one. Maybe? Yeah. We set that as the default state. Okay. Let's see what that does. But I know my first problem is it starts off running. I don't know why that is. It should start off in the is idle state. Okay, but anyway, let's select a character. Okay, we take out, we unsheath, we run. We come here, we attack. We go back to idle sheathed. Of course we do. Even though the weapon is drawn. Okay. So maybe it's got something to do with the fact some of our transitions. I have no idea. Let's try something. Let's go to the base layer, to the attack, and instead of exiting this like that, we do a transition there, and we go to the idle state from there. So after attacking, we go to the idle state, and we remove this. Okay, so now yes. So now we'll go entry, attack, base layer, and in the base layer we go straight back to the state transition from attack to idle. Right, and here we don't actually weapon drawn is true, so that's fine. So it should ignore this one potentially. Let's see if this is the solution. Maybe I'm understanding the whole animated thing completely incorrectly, and this is actually the way to do this. Okay, we're still starting in the running state for some reason. Let's see if I turn that off, if it changes now. Okay. Okay, weapon drawn. We draw the weapon. We now can't unsheath the weapon. Okay, let me run away. There is running becomes true because I'm far away. Attacks. Attacks. Ah, that's pretty good. So now at least we have an attack loop that works. Okay, so we just need to... This is running thing needs to not be... active from the start. So that's probably got something to do with the code. Somehow. So state machine... Actually, let's look at our state machine. I didn't actually look at the state machine itself. No, man. Go away. So if we go to the enemy, so let's just open it in the inspector. Crocodile. Okay. We have our state machine over there. So we can open it in debug mode. And then we should see the state that we are in. Right, so let's play. So we go into the running state, and that's why this happens. So we are entering the running state, which is completely bonkers. How did we do that? Maybe it's some old code I wrote that I forgot about. So state machine. So maybe we just need to put a start function here to start in the state is idle. Maybe that's just something I missed, so that now... I don't know. Maybe something is triggering it, but now let me just do that. Right, state's idle at start. This could be all I need to do. So this might be very straightforward. I can't believe this is so difficult today. I mean, he got there eventually, right? Okay, so even that, somehow it's overwritten. So the only way that could happen is if this is run. So in the manager, in start, we set the state to idle. Here we set the state to attack. Here we set the state to running. But we shouldn't be able to because we are doing an action. Actually, let's check something quickly. So let's see if it calculates the distance to player. Right, so that would be distance to player. So it's 0. So it shouldn't actually change. Yeah, it calculates this immediately. So is doing action is true, but it already ran that. So this maybe is not happening soon enough. Could that be the case? So is doing action from our manager I set that true there, but maybe I should just set it true at awake. That could be is doing action equals true. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so we just do that, right? So now this should be true even before we calculate the distance. I hope so. Okay, let's try. And we start in idle, and the distance wasn't calculated. Okay, thank goodness. So it turns out if you just initiate a value to something, it's not necessarily doing that first. You need to put it in awake explicitly. Well, I learned something. So if we select this guy, he's just going to chill, take out his hammer, start running. Perfect. It is working. And yeah, since I'm close by, he's starting to try and whack me. It's running. And I stand still. He's like, whack. Running. Okay, now I want to also change the idle. So this shouldn't have an exit time. We should be able to go to any one of the other states immediately. Right, so if we go to the attack state, for instance, we don't have an exit time. We use the trigger. Right, so now he should be attacking way faster. Because he's not waiting around for something to happen. Okay, so let's go have a look. He's standing there, waits a second, takes out his hammer. And he comes at me. Yeah. That's good. So it's just the attack animation needs to finish, and then he pretty much winds up the next one. That is perfect. Very good. Okay, I'm gonna go to the restroom real quick. So just hang in there while I do one of these and one of these. Okay, do 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm back. Okay, I'm thinking there's one more thing we can try and break here. That is the checking whether or not he'll chase after me while he's still in the attack animation. So I don't want him to start moving unless he's finished doing the attack. Right? So let's just see. So he comes towards me. He should be swinging. Yeah, so he only goes back into moving after the attack animation. Okay. I'm already seeing another problem. So that is with the the other thing, the running. So from idle to movement, there's still an exit time. We don't want that either. Right, so it goes into idle, but he doesn't. Okay, so let's try this now. So now he should run after me pretty much immediately. We should still definitely fix the way he runs, because he runs like a little bit weird. Okay, so he runs in place a lot. Okay, he tries to swing. He pretty much runs immediately. Okay, he's attacking. There we go. Run, 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 run. He attacks. He attacks again. Okay. So we should make the running animation look a bit better, or feel a bit better. So there's two things we should change, right? First is the speed. So if we just go here and we make him faster, like give him a speed of 6. I don't know if that's fast enough or too fast, or what it might be. Also, I need to do this inside of the prefab of this thing. 6. I could just overwrite them later as well. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's 6. Now, if we look at the bomber enemy, it has a speed of 6, so that's actually too slow. So this thing should be menacing, right? Let's make it speed 8. Okay, that might be too fast. Okay, but let's see, with the speed of 8, with the running animation, what does it look like? He should be faster than the frogs, and maybe slower than the lizards. I'm thinking. Yeah, okay, so this is already better, obviously, right? You can see. Interesting, he triggers the attack, but he still runs. Okay, so I think what that is the nav mesh stopping distance. So the stopping distance is 5. Maybe we make that 8 as well, perhaps. And now what we can also do is we can go and make the... Oh, let me just take that away. What we can also do is we can make the running animation a little bit better. Right, we go to movement, we can go to running. And if we make this animation 5 times speed, he should look a bit better, because he's... You know, his legs are moving slower, so he feels nice, big and heavy, you know what I mean, while he runs. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, let's pause that. Let's go to run, and let's make it 0.65. Just a little bit faster. Oh. Wait, how did you go back to idle sheave? It's probably something I did. Okay, well, whatever I did now kind of broke everything. So let me just do that from scratch. Yeah, changing that kind of made everything a bit weird. Okay, let's try again. Takes out his weapon, he runs towards me. Starts attacking. Okay, he's obviously quite slow in comparison to the ranger. Why is he not attacking? Let's open the gizmo. I'm definitely within the trigger zone. Huh. Why is he sliding backwards? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so we should maybe change the stopping distance to like 10, maybe? I don't actually know. But let's see if it's 10, if he works a little bit better. Let's take out the wizard, see how that feels. So he draws his weapon, he runs towards us. Interesting. So he is not triggering the attack. Okay, so let's go to our attack trigger and see what's going on there. Okay, so we have an attack trigger, and it basically just checks, look, is the enemy in here? Okay, so I think this thing is invoking. Yeah, the trigger is getting invoked quite often, right? Yeah, so what we want is we want one of these flippers, and the best example I can give you is this one, flip attack trigger. Actually, if I make this, but this is what we want, right? So we want a private void. Let's call it toggle attack trigger. Okay, and we can do. Oh, what do I do for the chicken knight? Yeah, I just added an attack trigger. Boolean. Okay, so we have a private Boolean attack trigger, yeah. Okay, and then we can do if attack trigger. Yeah, you know what? If I'm just gonna use the same thing the knight uses, it's pretty much this. If the attack trigger is currently false, they make it true. If it's currently true, they make it false. Literally this. Okay. So this toggles the attack trigger. Okay, now I can't remember if this is actually even used still. Okay, let's see. So the flip attack trigger is done there. Okay. I'll also check if this is flipped, if anything changed, before I flip the attack trigger. Okay. Now, is the attack trigger actually referenced anywhere? It's a private bull. Yeah, this flipper is not doing anything anymore. Oh, get attack trigger. Okay. And that is referenced. Okay, so they all have a little flipper in the attacks, and we just check. Now we get the get attack trigger function for the knight, and this player attack trigger thing is happening over here for the state machine. Okay, I might have a more elegant way of doing this, but for first of all, we need somehow to trigger the attack. Okay, we also don't want this thing to continuously invoke all this nonsense necessarily, right? So we basically only want this trigger, this function to run. Well, this function runs all the time, but we only want it to invoke the trigger when something changed. On, off, on, off, on, off. Now it's just on, then off, off. So basically what we want to do, play a character in trigger zone, and then we can have a boolean also called was player character. That's too much typing for me. Okay, and we can do was player character in trigger zone, right? And we can basically do this. So was player character, that's false, right? So if this thing is not equal to the was player character in trigger zone, and this should be a small was private. So basically what we're saying is, look, okay, you're saying it's true, okay, but is that new news? Is that new information? If it's not new information, then we don't worry about it. So let's say it's true. Then it goes here, and it says, okay, player, it's true. It's not equal to a false. That means we can invoke this. But then what we do is we say the was player character in trigger zone. We make that equal to the player character in trigger zone. Right, so what we're doing here is we're making them equal now. And then the next time we come around, we're like, okay, you are true, but this thing is also true, which means this is not new information. Which means we're not going to invoke this again. Right? Okay. So now we're only invoking the attack one if something new has occurred, right? So it's not a question of... It's basically asking, look, is it close by? Yes or no? And then later on when I move out, it's like, okay, he's not close by anymore. Okay. And then while this is happening, I should also be toggling the attack trigger, I believe, right? Is that what the knight character did? I believe that is what he did. Yeah, we flip the attack trigger. We toggle it as well. And then we keep track of whether or not we should be attacking or we should not be attacking. Yeah, so basically we say, okay, cool, we have new information here. The first time this thing triggers, it triggers, and this was false, so it makes it true, then it makes it false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true. but it only triggers it when it needs to, right? So we can do toggle attack trigger. Now, this makes sense to me. Now, it's possible that this is not necessary, right? It's possible that this thing could already figure it out. Yeah, because the first time this thing flips, or it starts off false, right? And it flips to true. So was player, that's now true. And we toggle this one, that's also true. Then this comes back, it actually triggers again. But that would mean this is false, so this is set to false, and then this is set to false. So technically was player in attack in trigger zone could be my attack trigger. Yeah. So we could get rid of this. And we could just call this the attack trigger variable. And then we can get rid of this function entirely. And we don't have to toggle it. Because technically it is toggling now already. So the attack trigger, let's see if this makes sense. So it starts off false, so there's nothing there. Then this becomes true because we entered the attack zone. It goes, whoa, true is not false. That's true. Okay, so true is not false, that's true. That means we can invoke the trigger. And we can actually change our trigger to whatever this was. So this is true. So now it's true. Now we are attacking because we are inside. Now, later on, let's say it comes back around again and it's still true. That means these two are equal, which means it doesn't do anything. And then eventually I move out of the trigger zone. So that means this is now false and this is still true. And that means I want to invoke this and I want to change this. And maybe I want to change this even before I invoke it, right? Something like this. So the other way I was doing it was kind of redundant. So this is now a complete functional trigger. Much cleaner, much smaller. Okay. So we are triggering, or we are not triggering. Okay. Let's see, okay, where do we actually listen to this trigger? So I'm thinking this thing? Yeah. So on attack 1, so we're getting that. So we're getting the trigger. And we're setting the state machine to attack. Okay. So we should think about this. We're setting it to attack, but we should only set it to attack when the attack trigger is in fact true. Right? So what we can do is we can have an argument be sent with the trigger, telling it, listen, trigger happened and it's in fact true. And if it's true, it can set the state to attack again. Right? And then when trigger is false, it should also perhaps set the state. You can't set it to attack directly, but it can at least maybe set it to idle, for instance. And then from idle, we can determine whether or not we should now run, or we could trigger the attack again. Right? That makes sense to me. So what we should do over here is, in this event, we should do a public. Now, I never remember how to do this, so let's just go somewhere where I can see how it was done previously. Who does this? Who does this? Who does this? The trigger zone? No, it doesn't do it. Player manager does this, maybe. Yeah, public class, on attack, trigger events, yeah. Yeah, and this is probably redundant stuff as well. Because You know, I'm learning. I'm getting better at coding. So the Crocodile is going to be much better than the characters, even though he has a lot of the same functionality as the characters do currently. Okay, but anyway, we want public class, something like that. Okay. So we do a public class on attack 1 event arguments, and we extend event args, and we basically just want the attack trigger. Does this require to be a public? So we do a public bool attack 1 trigger. Okay, so we do event handler, then we do this, and we say on, we need those event arcs, and then here we can't say this, we need a new on attack 1 event arguments, all the brackets, and we basically do attack 1 trigger is equal to attack trigger, right? So we just send the attack trigger through, and then in the manager, we actually now have event arguments. Right, so we could say that if e dot attack okay, so the state machine should give me an idea how this works again. Not the state machine, one of the animators. Oh, okay. We have that. Object sender, we need something like this. Okay, not just unit. Okay. Yeah, because this thing is currently doing a system.event args. So it shouldn't do that. It should do a CBE attack 1 dot on attack 1 event args. Yeah, and then we can do if e dot attack 1 trigger. So if it's true, so if it's a true trigger, we can do that. Right, if it's a false trigger, we don't necessarily do anything. Or we can set the state to idle. Now, let's not do anything for now. So we only set the state to attack when it's a true trigger. Let's just do that for now. I think this is a good way of going about it for now. Okay, so now attack triggering should work a little bit better, I believe. Let's go, Mr. Crocodile. Show me what you've got. Show me how clever you are. Show me how good you are at doing crocodile things. Okay, so we start off idle sheath. Go into taking our weapon out, running. Okay, we get there. We are is running. Okay, let's click on this guy. Go to debug mode. So attack trigger is true. Okay, let's see if I move out. Now it's false. Okay, now it's true again. Now it's false. Now it's true. False. True. False. True. Okay, so what I'm seeing is that we are not exiting the running animation. Okay, let's actually look at our state machine too. Okay, so the attack trigger seems to be working, right? Okay, currently it's false. Not sure why. I think we are just not in the zone. So it's set to true. So if we go to our Crocodile himself and we look at our state, the state is running. Okay, so let's just move. He runs, he comes, he doesn't do anything. Okay. Okay. So we're not exiting. Okay. Let's just do some debug log stuff. So over here, let's just make sure that this is happening at least. So debug.log, why is caps log on? And we should do something like croc attack trigger 1 in manager. Okay, so we know at least that we did get the event, and it is true, so it did actually try and set the state to attack. And maybe what's happening is the movement state machine is just the movement script is immediately overriding our attack state back to movement, right? Okay, this is very possible, so we might have to do something to get that thing to chill out first, because it's just overpowering. It's overpowering some of the triggers. So if you look at the way the movement's doing it now, it's actually doing an update, and it's just getting status checks. So it's actually trying to set the state every single frame, but it doesn't, because obviously there are other things that could prevent it. But currently I'm thinking that maybe the other things are not preventing it the way they should, and we just never get there. So for instance, I can already see this is a problem, right? So we are saying get state if we are not currently running and our distance is greater than 5, which is a problem because I think I set it in the... Yeah, okay, so that's maybe on me as well. Because in the nav mesh, I made the distance 10. So let's just make this 10. So that's one of the bugs. Let's make it 11. Jeez, like, because, yeah, if they're the same number, we might still get some weird behavior. So now we need to be greater than 10 distance before we can set the state to running. But currently, I think this is kind of what is happening. We set the state to running, and then if it's running, we can move. Now, it should come here on update. It's like, oh, wait a minute. We can't actually set the state to running, but something else tried to set a different state, so we allow it to do that. Okay, let's see if any of this works. And I should get the message now from here and potentially just have it attack, actually. Because I think I fixed the problem. Let's get one of these throat lozenge thingies. Because my mouth is dry, my throat is dry. There we go. Okay, Chicken Knight, come out. So we sheath, we idle, we unsheath, we run. Okay, we get there, we attack. We attack again. We attack again. Yeah, so croc attack trigger in manager. So now if I move out, this should not trigger again. But he should start running. Okay, so he starts running. Now if I stop and he catches up, this should trigger again. And yes, it does, and he starts attacking. And the running is not overriding everything anymore, because we changed the distance. Now, I don't want him to stop only based on distance. So I want the attack trigger to potentially also trigger a state change. Or at least make him stop running. Let's see if I can make him confused. What morning message is this? Oh, it's the pop-up. Jeez, I was so confused right now. Okay, so let's think about this. Why is he still attacking? While he's in the attack state. First of all, he's not able to turn around because I haven't coded that. So this is kind of a problem for him. If I move far away, he can course correct. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if we can figure out what we want to do with this manager. Well, not the manager necessarily, the movement. So how the movement works. So currently we set the state to running when the distance is greater than 11. That's not a problem necessarily. And he's not currently doing an action, right? So he won't start running randomly. My problem is when he stops to run. He only stops running maybe a little bit too late. So let's just see if that might be a problem with the exit time. So we have an exit time. Is if we set this to have no exit time, that could already be pretty much problem solved. So as soon as we switch off running, and we can actually look at the parameters and see if this works. So as soon as we switch off running, he should start doing something else and hopefully attacking, right? Way better. Way better. So he immediately starts hitting you. He doesn't run in place for like 2 seconds before he starts hitting you. Okay, so this is immediately much better. And if we run away, he realizes, oh wait, they're missing. Let's go. Gets to me, smacks me with the hammer immediately. It's kind of interesting. He started turning there prematurely, maybe. He starts turning right at the end of the animation. That's fine, right? That's not so bad. Okay, what happened here? Oh, okay. So he doesn't have a way to face the player yet. So if you get into his minimum distance area and you are also not in the attack zone, he can't do anything about it. And I can push him around apparently. I don't know if that should be possible though. Okay. If I'm outside his attack, his thingy, he can follow me. Okay, cool. So let's give him a way of turning around. So fortunately, I already have a script that does this for the movement of the frog. So we can go to range bomber enemy movement and we can find that one. So I think it's something like, oh, this is the moving backwards. Set destination. I obviously didn't name anything here. So we can find it. Okay, so the moving backwards, this is the right one though. So we just have a look direction. Or it might be this one as well. Yeah, okay, so velocity is 0, so we're not moving. We disable the agent. I don't think this disabling agent is actually required. I think if you don't set a new target for the agent, it's also fine. Well, it might fight it though. It might fight it. Actually, what happens if you set a target? So I think the way the agent works. Actually, let's think about that. So currently, I set the target only when I'm running and not doing an action. That's kind of okay. I could also be setting the target just always if I'm not doing an action. That could mean that he starts moving when I don't necessarily want him to move, but it also means that he at least faces the character. What else do I have for agent in terms of functions that I could use? Set destination, set path, set send message, raycast, really? Let's actually see, because I think there's a lot of things you can do with the nav mesh agent stuff that I just don't know them all. So if we go to Unity docs, okay, let's see if we go to the scripting API and we search for nav mesh. Let's see, nav mesh, and I should be able to get to the agent, I'm sure, if I just click on this one. Hello? I'm clicking. Okay. Okay, let's see the nav mesh agent. Let's see what we can do with him. Okay, so we have properties, and okay, like stopping distance, steering target, etc., etc. Okay. Update position, update rotation. This might be it. We can have it update position or rotation separately while still maintaining its target. So it never loses its target. We can just tell it to, you know, don't worry about the position or don't worry about the rotation. This is pretty good. So we can keep setting the destination. It might be a bit more expensive if I think about it. Yeah, because maybe it's more expensive to calculate a path position. Not a path, a destination. Let's see if we can actually make this work. So we could, for instance, we could do this. Okay, this might be very good. So we're going to calculate the, and then we can do agent dot update position equals true, for instance, and we can do agent dot update rotation equals true, right? So we do both of those, right? When we run after we calculate this, and maybe we set those to true first, and then we do the calculation, right? Perhaps that's the way you do this. Okay. Now we can think about this. Okay, so if we are not doing an action and we're not running, right? We're not doing an action, we're not running. The distance to the player is greater than 11, then we do run. But before we actually run, We can calculate the distance, and we could say agent dot update rotation is equal to true. Well, this is always going to be true, I guess. Agent dot update position is equal to false. So we're not moving the agent. So, okay, let's see. We're not in running state, so we can't move, but we might rotate. And we're not doing a... So, let's see. We are doing an action. So, let's say we are not doing an action, so we're not attacking, and we are not running. Okay. That means we can update our rotation, but we can't move because we're not running. Okay, and then we can also say agent dot set destination, right? We could still do this. We can still go to the player, actually. And let's just copy this whole thing. So, but since we turned this off, we could only rotate. And then once the distance is greater than 11, we change the state to running. And since we change the state to running, we can go here, right? And we are not doing an action, and we can update rotation and position. Let's see what this looks like. I think there's a problem here still with the rotation one specifically. But we're now using the nav mesh agent, and it simplifies this code way, way more. But we're using the nav mesh agent to get it to rotate. So let's have a look what this means. Nothing broke. That's good. So he does his thing. He runs towards me. Okay, great. So he gets to me. He attacks me. Okay. Now, if I move out of range, that's interesting. He's not changing his attack trigger. I might know why. So this was this thing, right? I said, okay, we trigger this, and so we walk out of the trigger zone basically for this attack. So what we should do is we should maybe have a else if for that matter, and we should do if it's not e dot attack trigger, then we should set the state back to idle, for instance. Okay, and I can say something here like the bugger dodged, for instance. Right, so now we are setting the state to attack or to not attack, or back to idle in this case. And then from idle it can do whatever it needs to do. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, he draws the hammer, he runs towards me, he sees me, he attacks. Okay. Now, if I move over here, the bugger dodged, so he's idling. Okay, but the nav mesh... So this might have something to do with the minimum distance problem. So let's click on this guy. So currently, no, not that one. Currently, I'm within the minimum distance, right? Stopping distance of 10. Let's go to debug. Let's see if we can see more for the nav mesh agent. We actually cannot really see anything else. Yeah, but I'm sure this is the problem. It's the stopping distance. So even though the bugger dodged, if I move out now, he will start attacking me again, and then if I move with it, yeah, the bugger dodged. If I move in again, okay. So he doesn't follow me, even though he's in the idle state. The nav mesh agent isn't exactly doing what I want. So there he kind of did something I wanted him to do. Oh, that's because... Okay, wait. I think I know how to simulate this. So maybe for running... So you're not updating position while running. Yeah, so let's make this like 20. So what this will do now is it would update rotation still, but not update position, and it's not going to go into the running state, which means even in idle he'll look at me. But there's still going to be that dead zone, I believe, with the distance, that minimum distance, that stopping distance. So I might have to stop him in some other way. We'll see now. So the stopping distance I might have to set a little bit differently. Yeah, I might not want a stopping distance, right? Which is kind of weird. But if I want to use the nav mesh agent for rotation, then I can't have a stopping distance, right? So he runs towards me, he hits me. Now if I move to here, the bugger dodged. And if I'm outside of the... Whoa, what just happened? Okay, so the bugger dodged. Yeah, so this is what I'm expecting it to do, right? So it can track me when I'm just out of range. Yeah. As soon as it goes over 20, though, it will actually start running towards me. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why it did that. Okay, so this is breaking quite a few things now. Okay, so let's make the stopping distance, I don't know, 1, for argument's sake, and let's see how that actually affects it. So this could be even worse or better, who knows? He's super confused right now. That's very interesting. Why does he teleport like that? I don't understand this. Oh, is that like... Maybe that's what this means. It's not... It should be, you know, start to move and not... Okay. This might be the problem. So he's technically... This is still false. But he starts to calculate the new position. And then only when I move outside of this 20 range... He updates the position, but he was calculating the position all the time. And then that's a teleport, right? Yeah, so... So maybe stopped is better? Let's try is stopped. So instead of this, we do agent. Okay, agent dot is stopped true. Right, and then so we want him to stop there, and we want him to actually move. So is stopped is false here. And we pretty much... Okay, let's just leave the rest for now. So let's try is stopped instead of update. So now he should stop. Okay, and this is now technically different from... This is technically the stopping distance, I think. So I'm basically telling it, look, as soon as you can run... So you run, and as soon as this happens, you have to stop. No matter what your stopping distance is, you have to stop. Not just stop updating the position, but stop. So you should still... Okay. Let's try this. And what we can also do is we can go and check the nav mesh and just see how that works out. Okay. So he does his thing, draws his weapon. Weapon is now drawn. He runs. He reaches me. He stops. Okay, but he skids a little bit. Okay, that's interesting. So the skidding is interesting. Okay, if I go here, okay, we can see he doesn't update the way I want him to necessarily. Let's go to scene. And let's switch on the navigation stuff, I think. Oh, we need to click on the nav mesh, I think. Okay, so he currently does not have a target. Okay, now I want to do both of these things simultaneously. So let's just put that down there, very small. Okay, so we run. Okay, now he gets... Okay, maybe we click on the crocodile. There we go. So we see he has a target, right? Oh, he is definitely still calculating my position. Only when I move in there, he stops calculating my position and he hits me for a minute. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So he knows I was there. He hits me. Okay. That is the... I don't know what that circle means. Okay, but if I move greater than some distance, he starts moving towards me. Okay, so is stop definitely looks to work a little bit better. Oh, come on, frogs, get out of here. Okay, let's just get him. Okay. So he tries to hit me. Okay, so that's what is stop does. It's kind of like the minimum. I'm just in code setting the stopping distance, pretty much, right? That's what it seems like. So, but I still want him to update his rotation, but that doesn't work with his stopped. It uses property set to get whether nav mesh agent stops or continues moving along a current path. Yes, I don't want him to move on the path, I just want him to look towards me. We could try with velocity. Right. Okay, so let's see what that does. We're learning now. Hey, we're learning. So that's fine. Okay, so stop doesn't quite do what I want. So we've tried this. Not quite the way I want it to work. Update rotation can just be true all the time. So what if we do... okay, so agents dot velocity equals... I need to do it a new vector 3, or vector 3.0. Right, so we just set the velocity to 0. And I'm thinking we should do it after we set the destination. So we get a new destination, we set velocity to 0. Now, hopefully that means that he will continue to look towards me while not physically moving through space. So the rotation should still work, right? I mean, let's try it quickly. Let's keep all of this stuff open. I have all my Unity windows open at once. Okay, so he takes out his thing, he runs towards me, he hits me. Okay. Okay, he does some weird stuff now. Okay, when he hits, he also moves. That's kind of interesting. Does he rotate though? No, he doesn't. But he does move. So he continues to move towards his last location, but even when I'm inside, he's setting his new destination. So he looks towards me all the time. Okay, so there's just a small bug here. While so he is actually rotating, and his velocity is 0. So, but there's a situation that when he starts to do an action, he does move. So in other words, basically he comes through here and he's like, oh yeah, I'm not running, but I am doing an action, so let's skip this. And then it's like, yeah, I am doing an action, so let's skip this, which means the old destination is still set, right? He doesn't set a new destination, but he keeps moving. Yeah, he doesn't set a new destination. But he's also not stopping. And he starts moving as soon as he sets a new destination. I'm not sure if I can get the behavior I want realistically. It seems like I'm hitting my head against this wall quite a lot. It's almost like the nav mesh agent is not going to make this easy for me. So maybe we should just do is stopped is true. Right? So we stop him. And that's just how it is. And then what we do instead, so we stop him, that's fine. He doesn't calculate anything. I think he doesn't calculate anything when he's stopped, right? I haven't checked actually. But then we do something that like this instead. So okay, I actually just disabled it here, but I think I don't need to do that. So I do this thing here. Where in movement, so something like this, where I calculate a look towards direction, and I do a 2 rotation, and I lerp transform dot rotation. Right, that should just work. Yeah, we look at the player and our current position. Yes, that's fine. That's perfect. So we should be looking at. Whoops. Okay, so when we are not running and we are not doing an action, we are rotating ourselves while we are stopping our agent. Okay, and then as soon as we do this, so here we can have a distance. I'm going to get rid of the distance one day. I think. Maybe. It depends. But anyway, so we do an action. We stop. We look towards the player. And that's pretty much it. So, okay. So let's see how this works. I also want to see if stopping just ends the calculations. Or the okay, I should be able to see that. So let's go. Let's go get this one figured out quickly. Okay, we select the ranger. So he's taking out his weapon. He runs towards me. Okay. So he tries. So he will follow me. And there he hits me. Okay, so he has some. Yeah, but now he's hitting me. I move it to this side. He's like, oh, the bugger dodged. Okay, and he's not updating his destination, right? He's just like, this bugger is dodging. And only when I move out of range does he actually update his. What did I do just now? Okay. So he comes, he runs after me. He's like, wah! He missed. But he tries. Yeah, and he can totally rotate towards me. Try to follow me. Okay, so what I could also do is have a way that, you know, this is why he'll have multiple attacks, so I can't just do this, you know, and dodge him all the time. Okay, cool. This one is interesting to me. I don't know why that happens sometimes. So if you look at the... Oops, cancel. Oop, oop, oop. Okay, let's make him a little less floaty. I feel like he floats a bit too much. So acceleration, that's fine. How do we make him less floaty? Because the smaller enemies seem to be very snappy. Oh, the acceleration is just massive. 50. Okay. Let's make the 50. It's like 25. Does that make him feel more reactive? Maybe? I don't know. That's the right word. Okay, he comes after me. I tried to run away. I don't. He hits me. He hits me again. Yeah, I like this. He's not floating as much now. So acceleration actually does affect the stopping speed as well. Yeah, this is good. This feels good. Right? Yeah, so if we bring this up here, you just see what it looks like. Yeah, so he runs after you, he tries to whack you. You kind of, maybe you take some damage, maybe you don't. I might have to change the way the damage works, just so that you take damage in a bigger area, maybe. Yeah, so you can't like run to that side, the side. Okay, this is weird. Why am I pushing him like this? Yeah, this is weird. So what causes that to happen? What is he? Yeah, I'm not pushing him anymore. Is that like... Okay, wait. I think I know what that might be. So the rigid body... They put it in normal mode. The freeze position, maybe I should switch that on. Because I think I'm pushing him away. And then he's got some velocity. Or force or something that he's trying to fight against. That seems possible. So let's just change that. Maybe we make it kinematic as well. I'm not sure if that's required. It might be. Okay, let's just run towards this area where we are in the screen. So here he comes. Let's see if I can push him. Yeah, no, I can't push him. I just run through him now. He can orientate towards me, but I can't push him. Okay, and that's maybe not something you want necessarily, but... Okay, but that's fine. So I can't push him now. I should now just make myself be able to collide with him. Yeah. I can't just run through him like that. Okay, cool. Let's stop it there. So we've done quite a bit. I'm just going to make a couple of notes. Let's do this. And let's just say boss enemy. He's working pretty well. Make player collide with boss. Right, so currently I just run through him. Oh, this might be why the frogs also sometimes get a bit whack. Because sometimes they seem also like they're fighting against something while they're moving. And I think that might be because I walk into them, I bump into them or whatever. And then they're kind of fighting that force that was applied all the time. Okay, make player collide with boss. I should also make something about changing. Let's just think about this. Let's call this a bug, right? Bugs and stuff. So just put it here. Let's call it collision with enemies causes weird movement. Could be an issue with the rigid body having a force, something like that. Consider locking position. Okay, but that could be one way I do it. The problem with that is then I'm going to be moving through them, right, instead of pushing them away. I kind of like pushing them away, so maybe there's another way. This means you can't push them out of the way, though. Right, so this might not be ideal. But let's leave it there. We can think about that next time. Okay, so I'm just going to go to my time tracker. Since we're getting to the end of this, boss Crocodile, let's stop our timer. 188 minutes, that seems reasonable. Okay, so we've spent 6 hours on the Crocodile so far, more or less. And that's me. It's a Monday. That means it's a work day. I have stuff to go do, get ready for, etc. So thank you so much for watching. I don't know. Twitch says I have 1 viewer at the moment, which is probably me, right? Okay, but I need to go, so no point raiding with only me, and then I leave immediately, right? Goodie. Okay, thank you so much for everybody that did join. Or if Twitch is bug, thank you so much for everybody that's here right now. Anyway, let's get the ending screen up and running. Let's pause this music. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me, trying to make a crocodile enemy work well. It's been fun. Have a good evening or a good day wherever you are. Cheers.